Well, welcome to Mission Control at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. I'm Pat Ryan. I'm the Public Affairs Officer on the Orbit 2 shift here in Mission Control. And we just got finished with our International Space Station update program. Now we're looking forward to the opportunity to talk with you and find out what's on your mind today. I have invited along somebody who knows all of these things even better than I do. Tracy Caldwell Dyson is a NASA astronaut who was selected for the astronaut program in 1998. She flew to the space station on Space Shuttle Endeavour in 2007 and spent 6 months on board the International Space Station as a member of Expeditions 23 and 24 in 2010. That was a trip back and forth on a Russian Soyuz spacecraft.
Yes, it was.
Pretty cool.
It was. Very cool.
Before you made that flight, I remember you telling me that you got excited about being an astronaut when you were in junior high school. So about the same age as these folks. What was it that got you excited at that age about being an astronaut?
Well, at that age, I think it was all the trips that I took out into the desert with my family. We would ride motorcycles and out in the desert where there's no lights and a bunch of stars. I would lay out on my motorcycle trailer at night and just dream about being up there and wondering what it was like. And so I think that was really what inspired me to keep looking up into space, and I think that's what always stuck with me as I went through school.
How did you do it then? What was the path for you that worked to get you from there to astronaut?
Well, the path was very curvy, and I wouldn't say that I had a plan going into it, but I think when I decided for sure that I wanted to become an astronaut, I had looked at a list of things that I'd written down that I enjoyed doing, and all of these things included, working with tools and learning different languages and liking science, and I put those things together and thought, after I learned about what astronauts did, I said, that's what I want to do, but I had no idea how I was going to get there. So my first step was to keep doing the things that I enjoyed doing. I was really interested in science, and so I think that's where I started to make the official step. Was when I left high school, I went to college, I majored in chemistry, and I just kept following my heart and doing the things that I really enjoyed doing. And I'd say that if there was any path I took, it was that.
Great. Let's find out what's on their mind. We're ready to take the questions from Centennial Middle School.
Hi. We all know that the computers play a big role with the International Space Station. So what do you do when a computer malfunctions, and how do you fix the problem?
Well, when a computer malfunctions, we have several different types of computers on board the space station. We have the real serious ones that are the brains of the station, and when one of those malfunctions, everybody knows it, and everybody takes action, and I mean from up on board the space station to here inside Mission Control, and even beyond the walls of this very room. So everybody pitches in to try to fix the problem. Plus the computers try to fix themselves as well. We have redundant computers, so we have not just one but three, and they all talk to one another, the ones that control the station. And so when one decides it's going to go its own way, the other two kind of pitch in and help make decisions. And so we rely on that redundancy, we call it. And then we also have laptops on board that don't run the space station, but they help us do our work up there. And when one of those malfunctions or gets a glitch, we do the old power cycle. We turn it on and we turn it off, or we turn it off and we turn it on. And if we can't seem to fix it by that method, then we call our friends down here in Mission Control, and then they walk us through some pretty elaborate steps to regain the control we needed of our computers.
How was the International Space Station built? For example, how was the International Space Station designed? How are the science laboratories built? And how long did it take to build the International Space Station, etc.?
Well, it took a little over a decade to build the space station.
Of actually flying pieces up, but it took a lot of time before that to get ready to do that.
Absolutely. And boy, how many years? I mean, it must have been a decade before that, if not longer.
At least.
Yes, that we were designing the space station, and the testing that it took to make sure all the parts that we were taking up there separately would work together once they were all put together in the vacuum of space. And then all of the hours that we spent up in space connecting everything using the robotic arms and the spacewalkers and all of the folks here on the ground that were supporting that. It took a number of years and days and hours consecutively. And what was the other part of that question?
Well, we started flying pieces of the space station in 1998.
Yes,
the first piece was 1998, and the last shuttle mission to fly to it was in 2012. So, but there have been crew members on board the station for just over 10 years now. So it's, and even before any of those flying, anything flew in space, there was a lot of designs. And in the case of this project, there were even redesigns as different partners were brought into the project. So it took a long time to get to where we are today.
So are the astronauts' circadian rhythms or sleep cycles affected due to how the International Space Station goes around the Earth?
Absolutely. And that's a big deal for us up there. So the space station itself, there are windows, but they aren't everywhere in the space station. So you can't necessarily see the sun go up and down unless you go to the window and look. But even if it did, the sun is rising and setting. What is it?
16
times a day, and so that kind of plays a role in your mind, at least, because you're used to seeing dark and light. So inside the space station, it's well lit during the day, and then at night we turn off as many lights as we can to help us to create a circadian rhythm. But it is difficult at first when you get there to adapt to just living on board and being in that environment. But yes, your circadian rhythm gets affected very much like when you travel abroad and you go far away and you're in a different time zone. It's very similar to that.
Okay.
If a spacesuit's exterior happened to become damaged in some way during a spacewalk, how could it be fixed in the International Space Station?
Now, you did some spacewalks on the International Space Station. What kind of training? What would you be prepared to do if if your suit became damaged during a spacewalk?
Well, if your suit became damaged during a spacewalk, I think the most important thing is to get back inside. If the damage is significant, and it doesn't take much for it to become that, the first job is to get inside. There's no fixing your suit. Especially if you got a hole in it. Time is of the essence, and so you'd get back inside the space station. And once you were inside the space station and safe, then it would be a matter of inspection on the suit to see just how bad it was. And so if you went all the way through the suit, well, then I don't know that we had the means to fix that on board, but we do have replacement parts on board the space station. But if it was just a piece of material that had had a slice in it, perhaps we could mend that. But it would be a big project regardless between the crew up on orbit and the folks down here in mission control.
What do you miss most about Earth when you are in space?
Oh, there's so much that you miss. First and foremost is your family, of course. But of the necessities in life, you'd really miss running water. Boy, when you're brushing your teeth, just never take for granted the water coming out of your faucet. When you have nothing else but a towel to spit it in, you begin to wish you had some running water. So I'd say that was probably the thing I missed the most.
What is Melfi, or the -80-degree laboratory for ISS, used for?
The Melfi is a super-duper freezer up on board, and it gets things beyond cold. We, on orbit, do a lot of experiments, and those need to be preserved, and the Melfi is our primary means of preserving samples, both mostly biological samples. And
Like
it could
blood
be
samples or
blood
whatnot.
samples, urine samples, as well as plant samples, and that's primarily what it's used for.
When you use the restroom in space, where does the waste go?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Out, I hope.
Yeah. This is such a touchy subject, but I think I can describe it. We collect it, and we collect it in steel containers, and the crew, once it gets collected, the crew doesn't ever have to directly interact with it. It just gets collected in a big steel container that gets sealed up, and we collect those containers until the next disposal vehicle is available, and we load them on the disposal vehicle, and then that's how we get them off the space station.
And that goes into one of the vehicles that are destroyed as they're coming back, right?
Exactly. And that's the solid waste. The liquid waste actually gets recycled back on orbit. We've got a really slick environmental control system that takes not just urine, but also condensate and sweat and respiration.
Takes the moisture out of the air.
The moisture out of the air, yes, thanks. And it takes it through a filtering system, and then produces potable water from that. And it's not bad.
Which is really very important too, because for future explorations, you can't carry with you all of the water that you're going to need. You got to reuse what you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's very encouraging that we have so much success with it on orbit right now.
And it tastes good.
It tastes good. In fact, I think most shuttle folks would agree that it's better than the shuttle water. I've heard that.
Okay.
What does it take to become an astronaut?
Ooh, I don't know. What it takes first and foremost is doing your best, and being your best, and to be your best and do your best, you have to do the things that really motivate you and you enjoy. And when that's what you invest your time in, you invest more than your time, you invest yourself, and that brings the best out of you. And that's I think the way to become an astronaut. Now, right now we're looking for folks who are really good in the STEM areas, so science, technology, engineering, and math, and also all the sciences, biology, physics, chemistry, those kind of things. That's kind of where my background is. But the exact path, every single astronaut has a different story, and so it's really hard to put that in a nutshell and give you any kind of direction. But first and foremost, it's strive to be the best at whatever you invest yourself into.
The first astronauts that NASA ever had were all test pilots. They were pilots, and they flew aircraft that were being tested to see whether or not that were building aeronautics. But since then, we've had astronauts who have come to the job with all kind of different backgrounds, from chemistry to biology. We have doctors, engineers,
veterinarians,
veterinarians, right?
Absolutely, yes. The backgrounds are all varied, and it seems that as we go further into exploration, I'm sure the possibilities are going to be even greater in terms of pathways to get here.
We'll need everybody.
Everybody.
I'm Will, and my question is, how does the ISS communicate with Earth, and is it possible to use a cell phone while on board?
Well, we communicate mainly through satellites. We have satellite dishes on board the space station that send signals and receive signals to satellites that are deployed out in orbit with us, and those beam the signals back down to the ground, and that's mainly how we communicate. We don't have cell phones on board, and if you brought your cell phone, I don't think that you would have much luck with it.
I heard, and I forget now, is it either Chris Hadfield or Tom Marshburn just a couple of days ago explained that we can't use cell phones because you're going too fast. You are
Yes.
moving so fast that the signal can't get to cell phone towers. You'd lose the conversation.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
name's Rebecca, and what would happen if an astronaut got like sick or injured while they were on the space station?
Well, we'd take care of them, that's for sure. We have on each crew a person trained as the crew medical officer, and we have supplies on board to take care of, someone that's ill and even with minor injuries. If it was very serious, we'd have to bring somebody home. But we are pretty well trained. In fact, those of us that are trained as the crew medical officers actually go, and part of their training is to go into hospitals and emergency rooms and actually work on patients there. So we take it seriously, and we get training to a degree that prepares us for some of the typical types of injuries that we would be susceptible to on board, so cuts and sprains and other things like that.
What is the hardest thing to adjust to in space?
Ooh, the hardest thing. Well, the microgravity environment certainly does present a lot of challenges, and I don't think anybody could dispute that learning how to go to the bathroom in space is probably one of the most challenging ones. You probably don't want me to describe that.
Hi, I'm Taylor, and I was wondering, how do astronauts keep the ISS sanitary?
How do they keep it sanitary? Good question. That is so very important. The way we keep it sanitary is by cleaning it, and it's a job that we do every Saturday, and it involves vacuuming, not just not the typical kind of vacuuming that you do at home.
On the floor.
On the floor. No, we don't do that. What we do is we have several vents, and there's a lot of air circulating through the space station because things float. They get picked up and then deposited onto filters. And in order for us to maintain a good breathing quality, we have to go and vacuum those off. And it's much like the vent in your dryer. If you've ever cleaned lint off of there, that's kind of the cleaning we do. But also handrails, because on orbit you float, of course, and you don't use your feet as much as you do here on the ground. You use your hands, and your hands are your way of moving around. If you've ever seen video of astronauts on board the space station, you see them moving around with their hands. And we use our hands for everything, and with touching our face, eating our food, doing our work. And so we, on a weekly basis, make sure that all those handrails have been wiped down and sanitized.
Thank you.
How does the International Space Station stay in place, and how does it have the ability to change its position in orbit?
Well, the way that we stay in place, so we're orbiting, and so how do we keep that distance from the Earth? That is through a series of we call them reboosts, and so we have engines on board the space station as well as the vehicles that do dock to it. They have engines as well, and sometimes we use those, and we fire the engines for a precise amount of time and in precise direction so that we can maintain the speed at which we're traveling around the Earth, and that's what helps keep us in place. And we do that on a routine basis. We call it a reboost. And
now, you get to that position because of the rocket that you launch on.
Yes.
It has enough power from the launch that gets you to a point above the Earth where the speed that you're going allows you to, in essence, just fall. The space station is not going around the Earth because it has an engine that's pushing it. It's just falling in space. But because it's at an altitude where the gravity of the Earth doesn't pull it down, at least not enough to bring it down, but it does come down slightly.
Yeah.
And that's why you've got to reboost it to get it back up so that as it falls, you're still in a safe zone.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. What was the worst problem encountered on the International Space Station, and how did the mission control team solve it?
Well, during the time I was there, I would say that the worst was when our pump module failed. This is a piece of equipment that is located outside the space station on our what's called the truss segment, and it circulates ammonia through lines that go into the space or go around the space station, and it helps to keep the space station cool, and all the equipment that we have there generates a lot of heat. So this is very, very important. One of those broke on board the space station, and that's why myself and my partner Doug Wheelock had to go outside and do a couple of spacewalks to remove it and put in place a brand new pump module. And I think that was by far the worst thing that happened while I was there.
I'd agree. From our point of view down here, yeah, that was the most dramatic thing that occurred during your time up there that caused a response on the ground from a lot of people who first had realized what had happened, and then second realized what needed to be done to fix it, and then plan the spacewalk for Tracy and Doug to go out and make those repairs. So it was exciting.
It was a big deal. Yeah.
Thank you.
How can the ISS be used for interplanetary travel?
Well, because the space station stays in one place in orbit, we wouldn't be taking it to another planet. But certainly, the way it can be used is all of the science that we're doing on board. And not just science, but the operations and the coordinating that we're doing, not just here with this mission control, but all the mission controls, is teaching us how to go beyond low Earth orbit to other planets. And so I would say that that's how we're using it, is we're using it to learn about space, living in space, which is what we'll have to do when we go to other planets, and how we can adapt and how we can get back safely, I would say.
You could push it out of orbit and head it off in a direction, but it's not designed for any trip like that, and it wouldn't be a very good way to make the trip. But it is helping us learn how to design spacecraft that can make that trip.
Yeah, and components of the spacecraft. And in fact, one of the science experiments I remember doing on orbit was looking at fuel tank designs, because it's not like here on Earth where you can rely on gravity to pull fuel into the engine. It takes a little bit of cleverness, and so we use the space station to learn what is the best design for a fuel tank.
One more question.
Hi. Do astronauts require more food while in space, and about how many pounds of food is on the ISS?
What was the first part of that question?
Do astronauts require more food while they're in space?
Oh, I think that varies with each crew member. I would say that, yes, I mean, just like it does here on the ground. Mm-hmm. And I would say that when you first get there, you might not be so hungry, but when you start to get into the swing of things, then your appetite certainly is pretty normal. So I would say for the most part, people don't tend to eat more, but we're all different. And how many pounds of food are up there? I do not know what that number is, but what I can tell you is that each crew stays on orbit just a couple weeks shy of 6 months, and there's enough food for them to eat not only breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, but there's also snacks up there and drinks, and that's not just for the crew that's on orbit at this time, but we also we call it staging food. We put food in place for the next increment so that it's there well in advance of them showing up. So I would say there is a lot of food.
There's hundreds and hundreds of pounds of it, and there's more launching tomorrow morning. There's a cargo ship that's launching from Florida just after 9 o'clock Houston time tomorrow morning, and it's got 1,200 pounds of supplies, and a big piece of that is food.
Food's very important on orbit.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we appreciate it. Centennial Middle School, would you like to say goodbye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.